Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something really cool. We are untangling the vast, multi-layered alternate history of Prince David's Climax universe. We're going to bridge its cosmic fantasy origins right into a profound earthly philosophy that directly challenges how we view our own world. I'm absolutely thrilled to share this one with you.
So the foundational text we're looking at today is the epic saga, Ava's Legacy, Saga of the Empty Sky. Now, on the surface, sure, it's this intricate tale of winged beings with unbelievable abilities. But as you'll see as we get into it, their dramatic, often violent, history actually delivers a searing critique of human nature, tribalism, and all those labels we tend to cling to.
We've got a wildly fascinating roadmap today. We'll start with the origins of Climax, move on to the Fall to Earth, explore how the Aves integrated into human history, and then spend some time unpacking the Nameless Manifesto and this concept of burning the cages. Let's get right into it. Starting off with Section 1, the origins of Climax and a planet deeply divided.
It is totally crucial to understand the aves, not just as, magical winged creatures, but as deeply flawed beings. In this lore, they're actually descendants of Eve, separated by the divine back in ancient times. But rather than flourishing in isolation, they basically lost their connection to God through selfishness, prejudice, and these brutal tribal divisions. Honestly, they act as a direct mirror to our own human flaws.
So for thousands of years, systemic oppression created this endless pendulum swing of vengeance that completely defined their homeworld. Think about it like this. They go from the empire of men, which is this heavily misogynistic rule hoarding power crystals, to an extreme overcorrection, a misandrous society called Agarchi set up by a ruler named Yosefina. And even when a unifier named Venceros finally brings the powers together, the ingrained hatred is just too strong. His sons, Adale and Nepsidon, plunge the world into a war so devastating, it literally shatters the entire planet of Climax.
And that cosmic destruction brings us right to Section 2, the Fall to Earth and a Devil's Bargain.
Okay, so the survivors scatter across the cosmos, right? But here is the catch, and it's a terrifying one. According to the source lore, a sadistic curse was placed upon them. Immense, godlike star powers were granted to 7 chosen tribes. But this power is tied directly to the host's emotional state. Get this, if a star is killed while depressed or crying, that power doesn't pass on to an heir. It is lost permanently. And if the final star of a species dies in despair, that entire race goes extinct. No way around it. So their survival on Earth instantly becomes this high-stakes psychological thriller because dark forces like the vengeful brother Nepsidon actively hunt these stars just to induce despair and wipe out whole bloodlines.
Which perfectly transitions us into Section 3, Aves in Human History and the Creation of an Alternate Earth.
This is where the lore completely rewrites our history in such a cool way. The source material tells us that Asian Aves actually rescued Anastasia Romanov from the Russian Revolution, and with her they formed the egalitarian Anastasian Socialist Republic. They even marry into Cold War-era North Korean leadership to maintain their monarchy. The history we know is effectively hijacked and remixed by these winged survivors. But perhaps no figure exemplifies this wild integration better than Ava. Her personal journey perfectly anchors the chaos of this universe. Born in Newfoundland to a former Viking pirate, she survives a massacre, escapes to London during World War II, and is actually adopted by King George VI. I mean, wow! She becomes known as the Foundation Star, navigating human global conflicts to establish a secret, protected matriarchal safe haven for the Aves, all under the shield of the British Crown. It is a brilliant blending of real history and pure fantasy. Now we are shifting gears for Section 4, the Nameless Manifesto, a philosophical shift. We are introduced to Emperor Omar. He's a descendant of the Anastasian Empire and an Islamic caliphate who ultimately conquered in territories stretching all the way from North Africa to India. And he opens his primary philosophical treatise with this absolute bombshell of a line. This work has no title, for a title is a cage. He views our human obsession with naming, labeling, and categorizing ourselves as the exact thing trapping humanity in endless cycles of war. And, the sheer contradiction of the emperor's own life is fascinating. The text points out he was born to an extremist father bent on eradication from the House of the Rifle. Yet, he marries Hadassah, a Jewish woman from a rival nation, the House of the Stone. The crucial takeaway from the source here is that the emperor flat out refused to be hostage to his ancestors' wounds. He looked at the historical blood feuds of the Middle East and impartially chose to weaponize his complex lineage to force peace.
He dismantled sectarian logic to unify the very lands his people insisted had to remain a battlefield. In his manifesto, he doesn't pull any punches either. He brutally deconstructs religious hypocrisy. He impartially throws the sacred texts of Jews, Muslims, and Christians right back at them to highlight their shared failure to simply be human. He points out, very matter-of-factly, that all these groups claim to worship a source of love and justice, yet they build walls, launch missiles, and let their neighbors starve over differences in vocabulary. It's a fascinating, sharp critique of real-world tribalism, all framed perfectly through the lens of this alternate history.
This brings us to our final section, Section 5, Burning the Cages, looking at wealth, war, and love.
To explain his economic philosophy, he uses this really cool comparison. He contrasts the merchant of illusions, someone who hoards gold and builds a flashy palace on sand, with the builder of purpose, who lays bedrock and knows that money is really just a tally of vanity. The emperor makes the argument that hoarding wealth, or even hoarding knowledge, is a supreme failure. True charity isn't tossing a coin to a beggar. No, it is the generous transfer of wisdom. It's teaching someone how to navigate the world so they can build their own solid foundation. When his commanders asked if they should burn a rival city to the ground, he replied with this incredible question: "Does your God prefer the smell of ash or the sound of children playing in the streets?" This perfectly connects the senseless historical blood feuds of the winged aves back on Cremax to the very real, devastating tribalism we see in our own history. He essentially stops asking for permission to be right according to old historical grievances and focuses entirely on preserving life for the next generation. And honestly, this brings us to his most radical definition of all. The emperor completely flips the concept of love on its head. He strips away its polite, comforting facade to reveal a terrifying, demanding discipline. Love isn't just nodding along with people to keep the peace. As he says, love is a scalpel. It requires radical honesty and sacrifice. It is the courage to tell someone the hard truth to save their life, rather than letting them walk right off a cliff just to avoid an uncomfortable conversation. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final, incredibly provocative thought straight from the Emperor's Manifesto. He points out that every single label, every dollar, every border will eventually turn to dust. So if you lost your wealth, your nationality, your political labels today, who would you actually be? It's a brilliant challenge from the source material, and it really forces us to examine the cages we might be clinging to in our own lives right now. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredible universe and philosophy. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.